Hello cinephiles and movie buffs alike, and welcome back to another video. Over this past weekend, aside from celebrating Father's Day with my family, side note, happy Father's Day to any dads out there, but aside from that, I was able to watch the newest #1 movie on Netflix, Hitman. Now, while I typically try and avoid Netflix originals since they pump out a lot of less than great films, I was excited to check out Hitman since it was directed by Richard Linklater. And for returning viewers, you may have heard me mention Linklater in previous videos. I'm a pretty big fan, as School of Rock was a big part of my childhood. I love Dazed and Confused, and his Before trilogy with Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy is my personal favorite trilogy of films. He has an incredible knack for writing dialogue and being able to completely captivate an audience by having his characters just converse. Hitman, while more plot-driven than most of his other work, still contains that core aspect, and I had a really good time with this film. I thought it was charming, funny, creative, and just a well-done film from a great filmmaker. But this is no review. Instead, I wanted to focus on the main theme of the film, a question posed by the film itself in the opening scene, but one I too will ask the viewers of this video. Who are you? But the bigger question, does it matter? But before that, let's take a quick break to talk about the sponsor of today's video. I've seen firsthand the devastating impact of identity theft and scams. A close friend of mine had their credit card information stolen, and it turned their life upside down. The thieves racked up thousands of dollars in fraudulent charges, leaving my friend struggling to clear their name and repair their credit. Not to mention, through my years working in customer service, I've heard countless stories from customers who have fallen victim to scams and had their personal information compromised. It's a nightmare scenario that can happen to anyone, and it's why I've started using Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura is like a digital guardian, constantly monitoring the dark web and data broker sites for any signs that your personal information has been leaked or sold. If they find anything, they alert you immediately and help you take action to protect yourself. In today's digital age, our personal information is more vulnerable than ever. Just look at the recent AT&T data breach, where the personal details of over 73 million customers were leaked on the dark web. It's a stark reminder of how important it is to have a comprehensive online security solution like Aura. With Aura, you don't have to worry about juggling multiple apps or services to keep your information safe. Everything you need is in one place, from data broker opt-outs to identity theft insurance, and best of all, Aura is always working in the background, giving you peace of mind while you go about your day. I value my privacy, and I value yours. You can go to aura.com/formerfilmstudent to start your 2-week free trial, which is also linked in the description down below. Don't wait until it's too late to protect yourself from identity theft and scams. Let Aura be your digital guardian and take control of your online security today. And now, Hitman. The film follows a psychology professor named Gary Johnson, who begins the film as a pretty standard run-of-the-mill guy. He dresses a little dorky, isn't the most exciting conversationalist, and maybe could be described as a bit boring. In his spare time, when he's not feeding his cats or reading about birds, he helps out the local police by assisting in sting operations to catch men and women who are trying to put out a hit on someone in their life, whether that's a spouse, significant other, boss, or even a coworker. At the beginning of the film, Gary simply is assisting with the technical side of the sting operations, but last minute is coerced into being the undercover cop playing the hitman. Despite nerves, Gary absolutely kills it, and resumes the role of the undercover agent for several more sting operations in the future. And in a fun twist of events, he gets really into it. He begins tailoring his fictitious killer identities and mannerisms to the specific client, putting on an array of different costumes, makeup, and even a few different accents. As the film progresses, however, one thing is made evidently clear. The lines between Gary Johnson and the characters he conjures up during the stings becomes more and more blurred. That is where the subject of today's video essay comes into play. Now, this is not a narrative we've never seen done before. While the execution is what makes the film a delight, the story concept of a character pretending to be someone else and losing their sense of identity isn't exactly new, as it makes complete and perfect sense that someone would react that way if given the opportunity. In real life, I don't think it's crazy to say a lot of us wish we could be someone else. Sometimes practicing self-love isn't the easiest thing, and the idea of wanting to be someone else, whether that's a famous celebrity or athlete or even someone we know in our personal lives, is a very real thing. And I know, at least for myself, as I wouldn't want to speak for anyone else, that the idea of being stuck as who you are with no wiggle room to be a different person is a personal prison that feels inescapable on a day-to-day basis. At one point in the film, Gary meets up with his ex-girlfriend, whom is now married and pregnant, and they discuss the idea of whether or not people can change. Gary argues yes, but only within small marginal parameters, whereas his ex proclaims that recent studies have shown people do have the willingness and ability to change their personality, to essentially become different people. I myself, as well as I'm sure many others, have pondered this same question late at night when you can't seem to turn your brain off, wondering whether or not we or the people in our lives can truly change. This conversation is essentially the crutch that the film is intending to balance on, as Gary himself allows a young woman to go free before incriminating herself. The two strike up a relationship afterwards as he continues his facade of being a badass hitman named Ron. The identity of Ron is perhaps the most important one of the film, as not only is Ron the person that this woman falls in love with, but Ron is the man that inside Gary wants to be. He's confident and interesting and has a commanding presence. For all intents and purposes, he's the opposite of Gary in every way, shape, and form. When the cat's out of the bag and Gary's lie inevitably comes crumbling down, he admits to her and himself that he too loved Ron. He loved the identity of Ron because it was everything he wasn't. During a scene that is played up for laughs but is kind of sad when you boil it down, Gary overhears his co-workers talking about how even they would love to hang out with Ron, but not Gary. I think in life we often do get stuck into this version of ourselves that's an amalgamation, a collage of who we think we are, who our friends think we are, and who the world thinks we are. Some people shift their personality as a sort of social chameleon and act different depending on the situation, but never to a drastic degree. But the idea of who you are is one that may be impossible to answer. Even the most confident of people have their moments of insecurity and vulnerability. In the film Hitman, the themes and subtext are not exactly hidden or subtle. For Christ's sake, Gary's two cats are named ID, for identity, and ego. But in a very interesting and clever climax and resolution to the film, Gary realizes something that I think is sort of liberating and can maybe wake us all up a little bit. At the end of the film, Gary is shown to have settled down with the same woman he initially lied to, and they're shown to have children and leading a fairly happy life, with Gary acknowledging that he's still Gary, but that some of Ron made his way into his personality. And I think that even though it's a fictional film, it really rings some interesting truths about real life. I really do believe that people can be anyone they want to be. You can be confident, you can be brave and strong-willed. I think that in the end, what Hitman is trying to exclaim is that nobody can do a 180 like, say, Hawk on Cobra Kai, who goes from a quiet, shy, nice and nerdy kid to a tatted up, spiky-haired badass. Those sort of drastic personality shifts feel like they're in the Jojo Siwa camp of forced change. However, you are not completely stuck as the person you are. With self-work and self-love constantly on your mind, if you learn to recognize the attributes about yourself you're proud of, and the ones you aren't so fond of, you can learn to grow and nurture the positive traits and weed out the negative ones, planting better ones in their place. I'm not really sure where that gardening analogy came from, but the point still stands. The question posed, "Who are you?" is immediately and utterly useless. Sure, having an idea of who you are is great, but in the end, it doesn't matter, because we as humans have always changed. Humans are and never should be stagnant. We're like a constantly moving locomotive, and who you are today doesn't matter, because you have the ability to be whatever kind of person you want to be tomorrow. Well guys, thanks as always for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to click the like button, subscribe if you want to hear more from me, and click the little bell notification button so you get notified when I post new content. And of course, I will see you guys on the next video.